The Johnsons, consisting of Tom, Sarah, and their only daughter, Lily, had finally found their dream home. Nestled at the edge of a serene countryside, the picturesque house promised a fresh start and a tranquil life. As they settled into their new abode, the family couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation tinged with excitement. Exploring their backyard, the Johnsons discovered the remnants of the previous owner's pet, an old, dilapidated doghouse. Weathered by time and neglect, it stood as a silent sentinel, the only trace of the previous inhabitants. Tom scratched his head, unsure of what to do with it. As the evening sun cast elongated shadows over the backyard, the doghouse seemed to beckon to Tom. Its worn wooden planks whispered of untold stories and secrets locked within its walls. Ignoring his initial skepticism, Tom made up his mind. "We could use it for Rusty," he said, referring to their family dog, who would surely enjoy a cozy retreat of his own. Unbeknownst to the Johnsons, the doghouse had a dark past. It had been a witness to unspeakable horrors, a silent observer of pain and suffering. As they dragged it closer to the house, a chill ran down Sarah's spine, but she dismissed it as a figment of her imagination. That night, the atmosphere changed. Shadows seemed to dance with an eerie energy, and the air grew heavy with an otherworldly presence. Sarah's footsteps echoed softly through the house as she checked on the children. Passing by the doghouse in the moonlit backyard, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A whispered breeze rustled through the nearby trees, carrying with it a haunting melody that made her skin crawl. In the following days, the family settled into their new routine, the doghouse becoming a permanent fixture in their backyard. Yet, an unspoken tension lingered whenever they passed by it. Sarah found herself stealing glances at it, half expecting a pair of ghostly eyes to peer back at her from within the shadows. As the days passed, the atmosphere around the doghouse grew ever more unsettling. Eerie noises echoed from its weathered frame like whispers carried on the wind. Cold drafts seemed to emanate from its decaying walls, chilling the air around it, even on the warmest of days. The Johnsons couldn't ignore the peculiar phenomena any longer. One evening, Sarah found Lily perched on the ground, her tiny finger tracing invisible patterns in the air. "What are you doing, sweetie?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. "I'm playing with Ethan," Lily replied, her gaze fixed on an empty space beside her. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Ethan? Who was Lily referring to? The name struck a chord deep within her, an echo of a forgotten past. Lily's behavior took a disconcerting turn. She became increasingly withdrawn, her innocent laughter replaced by long periods of silence. She spoke less and less to her family and immersed herself in solitary play, often whispering to unseen companions. The imaginary bond she had formed with Ethan appeared to grow stronger, becoming an inseparable part of her world. Nighttime brought no solace to the Johnsons. Their dreams became battlegrounds of terror and despair. Vivid nightmares plagued their sleep, as if the spirit had crossed into their subconscious. Shadowy figures lurked at the edges of their vision, their eyes burning with an otherworldly intensity. Each night they woke drenched in sweat, their bodies trembling with a primal fear they couldn't explain. Sarah and Tom could no longer dismiss the mounting signs of distress in Lily. Her once bright eyes now held a haunted emptiness. She spoke of secret conversations with Ethan, whispering fragments of cryptic phrases that left her parents grappling for understanding. Driven by the need for answers, the Johnsons embarked on a journey into the darkest recesses of their new home's history. They combed through archives, unearthed forgotten documents, and spoke to elderly neighbors who had once witnessed the shadows of the past. Their quest led them to a hidden truth that chilled them to the core. Through faded newspaper clippings and hushed whispers, they discovered the harrowing tale of Ethan, the boy whose spirit now lingered in the doghouse. The flashbacks revealed a childhood marked by torment and abuse. Ethan's father, overwhelmed by grief after the death of his wife during childbirth, harbored an inexplicable resentment towards his own son. The old doghouse held more secrets than the Johnsons could have ever fathomed. It was not merely a structure of weathered wood, it was a chamber of horror and pain that had consumed the innocent soul of a young boy. Within those decaying walls, Ethan had suffered a torment that defied imagination, a relentless cycle of abuse and neglect that scarred him to his core. Ethan's father, a man burdened by grief and resentment, had become a vessel of cruelty, directing his anger towards the vulnerable being that reminded him of the wife he had lost. When Ethan's disobedience exceeded his father's limits, the doghouse transformed into a malevolent prison, confining the boy to its suffocating confines. Bound and restrained, Ethan was left to endure the horrors of his father's wrath, his pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. Days turned into agonizing eternities as Ethan languished in the suffocating darkness, his only companion the loyal family dog who offered a meager solace in the face of unspeakable terror. Through sleepless nights and sunless days, he withstood the physical and emotional abuse, his frail body racked with pain and his spirit crushed beneath the weight of his father's wrath. Ethan even shared food with the family dog that was scattered on the floor. One fateful day, as the sun cast its harsh glare upon the neglected doghouse, Ethan's fragile body succumbed to a high fever. The fever burned within him, a relentless fire that consumed the last vestiges of his strength. In his delirium, he cried out for help, but his father was absent, consumed by his own selfish pursuits. Days turned into an eternity as Ethan's life slowly slipped away within the confines of that wretched place. When the father finally returned, it was too late. The horror of his negligence gripped him as he discovered the lifeless body of his own flesh and blood. Panic and guilt consumed him as the realization of his unspeakable actions washed over him. The authorities were called, and the father was arrested, the weight of his crimes finally catching up with him. The weight of this revelation bore down upon the Johnsons, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of the anguish that had stained their new abode. The realization struck them with an almost unbearable sorrow. The haunting that had plagued them was not random or accidental. It was the desperate cries for justice from a tortured soul. With this newfound understanding, the family began to witness the haunting intensify. Shadows seemed to lengthen, twisting and contorting in sinister dance. Ethan's ghost, consumed by rage and anguish, became increasingly malevolent. The once innocent spirit now targeted the Johnsons, driven by an insatiable need for vengeance. Objects moved on their own, propelled by an unseen force. Blood-chilling whispers echoed through the hallways, carrying the torment of a lost soul. The family's nights were filled with dread as the spectral presence grew more tangible, their sleep tormented by nightmares that merged the horrors of the past and present. Sarah, her voice quivering with fear, urged her family to confront the tormented spirit head-on. They had to find a way to release Ethan's trapped soul, to offer him the peace that had eluded him in life. Desperation fueled their determination, even as their own sanity teetered on the precipice of darkness. The Johnsons sought the guidance of spiritual experts, mediums, and paranormal investigators. Each encounter deepened their understanding of the power that held Ethan captive. Together they embarked on rituals, delving into the arcane and ancient methods to break the shackles that bound the tormented spirit to the doghouse. But Ethan's fury grew stronger, his desperation mirroring the depths of his suffering. He fought against their efforts, unleashing a torrent of malevolent energy. The Johnsons found themselves pushed to their limits, their strength and resolve tested in a battle against the forces of the supernatural. Desperation etched deep lines on the faces of the Johnsons as they sought the aid of a renowned paranormal investigator. The expert arrived, his presence commanding, exuding a sense of authority over the unseen realm. With sage advice and ancient knowledge, he guided the family through the treacherous labyrinth of the supernatural. During the investigation, Ethan's spirit surrounding the doghouse grew restless, his malevolence seeping into every corner of the home. The air became heavy with an indescribable energy, and whispers of long-forgotten grievances echoed through the halls. Lily, in a moment of vulnerability, fell victim to Ethan's spirit, a vessel for his undying rage and sorrow. Witnessing their beloved daughter consumed by an entity they could not see, the Johnsons' hearts filled with anguish. The paranormal investigator recognized the urgency of the situation, knowing that time was running out to save Lily from the grip of Ethan's vengeful ghost. With a steady hand and a voice woven with ancient incantations, he led the family through a ritual, calling upon forces beyond human comprehension. Together they stood at the precipice of a battle between light and darkness, each member of the Johnson family pouring their strength and love into the incantations that sought to release Ethan's tormented soul. Lily's small frame quivered with the weight of possession, her eyes reflecting a turmoil that no child should ever endure. At the climax of the ritual, a blinding burst of energy illuminated the room. Shadows scattered, and the weight of the past lifted from the house. Ethan's spirit, writhing in agony, was finally set free, his anguished cries dissipating into the ethereal realm. As his presence faded, so did the doghouse, evaporating into thin air as if it had never existed. In the aftermath, the Johnsons stood in awe and relief. The house, once shrouded in darkness, now exuded a sense of tranquility. The heavy atmosphere lifted, replaced by an air of peace that wrapped around the family like a warm embrace. The scars of their ordeal remained, etched in their memories, but they found solace in knowing that they had helped Ethan find the peace he had long yearned for. Slowly, the Johnsons began to rebuild their lives, their hearts healing from the wounds inflicted by the haunting. The Johnsons found solace in the knowledge that their resilience and love had prevailed over the forces that had sought to tear them apart.